All right, we're going to go ahead and talk about adding and subtracting radicals. Your homework is over radicals worksheet number 5. So when we're looking at adding and subtracting radicals, this is going to look something like 2 radical 15 plus 5 radical 15. So our steps, the first thing that we want to do is we want to simplify all radicals. So this means that there is no perfect squares under the radicals. Step 2, we're going to go ahead and identify the radicals that have the same index and the same radicand. Only these can be combined. So square roots can only go with square roots, and they have to have the same number under the radical. For common radicals, add or subtract the coefficients and keep the common radical. So if we look at this first example here, I can go ahead and simplify radical 20. So we're going to go ahead and start with that. Radical 20 can be broken up into radical 4 and radical 5. So this would become a 2, which would go with the negative 2. So we'd have negative 4 radical 5. And then we still are subtracting 2 radical 5. So now that I have a radical 5 and a radical 5, we can go ahead and add or subtract the coefficients, the numbers before the radical. So negative 4 minus 2 makes negative 6, and then we keep radical 5. So my answer would be negative 6 radical 5. So looking at our first practice problem, we cannot simplify radical 6. There is no perfect square that goes into it. They both already have radical 6, so I'm going to go ahead and add the coefficients. So 3 plus 2 makes 5, and then I keep radical 6, so 5 radical 6. 2, they cannot be simplified. Radical 5 is as far simplified as it can. They both have radical 5, so I can go ahead. 12 minus 6 is 6, and we keep radical 5, so 6 radical 5. On number 3 here, we are not able to simplify either of these radicals. 30 does not have a perfect square that it can go into. 10 does not have a perfect square that it can go into. And so we are actually done with that problem. There is no simplifying that we can do. So we would just rewrite our answer as negative 7 radical 3 plus 2 radical 10. You cannot put those together because they don't have the same radical. On number 4, we have some radical 5s and some radical 3s. None of those can be broken up, so we're just going to put together our like ones. So radical 5s are going to go together, and then radical 3s are going to go together. There we go. And we're going to do whatever operation the problem says. So for radical 5, it's 2 plus 6, so I'd have 8 radical 5. For radical 3, it's 4 plus 6 plus 10, which is plus 20 radical 3. I cannot put those together because one has a radical 5 and one has a radical 3, so they are different problems. Looking at number 5 here, 10 radical 7 plus 2 radical 63. We can break down radical 63, so that would become radical 9 and radical 7. So I'd have 10 radical 7. Radical 9 would become 3 with the 2 outside would become 6, and then radical 7 stays under the radical. So 10 radical 7 plus 6 radical 7 makes 16 radical 7. All right, looking at the next one, radical 15 plus 6 radical 60. We can go ahead and break up that back one. Radical 60 can be broken into radical 4 and radical 15. So that radical 15 is going to stay by itself. Radical 4 would become 2, which would go with the 6. So we'd get 12 radical 15. Now, there is no number written in front of the first radical 15, and so there is an unwritten 1. And so we're able to place that in if you need to. So I'd have 1 radical 15 plus 12 radical 15, which makes 13 radical 15. All right, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answers to the next two for you to check. This one, number 6, should be negative 1 radical 2, or you could just go ahead and leave it as negative radical 2. And the last one here, you would get an answer of negative 14 radical 10. So go ahead, try 6 and 7, see if you get those answers. Otherwise, you know that you need to ask a question.